Now that we're at this point, I'm just going to say it. I didn't marry a pig.
His thoughtless words cut like a knife.
Seeing you breastfeeding looks just like a pig nursing. Ugh, I can't stand it. You've got a big belly now. I married you because you were stylish and beautiful, but I feel like I got scammed.
I bit my lip and endured his insults, but I couldn't stay silent anymore. I put the divorce papers on the table, grabbed my bank card, and left the house. My name is Leah. I'm 28 years old, and I'm a stay-at-home mom with a 4-year-old son and an 8-month-old daughter. I met my husband at a college club party where he aggressively pursued me. Gary showered me with compliments about my looks. Coming from an all-girls school, I wasn't used to men, so his constant declarations of love swayed me, and we started dating. In our first year of dating, I got pregnant, but since we were both still in college, I reluctantly decided not to have it. I think my parents started distrusting him because of that. A few years later, when I decided to marry him, they were strongly against it. Stubbornly, I refused their help during my pregnancy and childbirth, and now I manage all the housework and childcare by myself.
Mom, I can't put on my shoes. Well, which one is right and which is left?
My son Josh was fussing at the door. The preschool bus was due any minute. Annoyed, I said, "Honey, please, help Josh with his shoes. I'm breastfeeding Jenny right now." I was nursing my daughter while trying to get my husband to help with our son. My husband works in sales for a food company, and even though he had a remote meeting at 9 a.m., he was lounging on the couch playing games on his phone. But he responded,
Huh, seriously? Why do I have to help him? Josh, you can't even put on your own shoes?
He got up from the couch, grumbling. "There's still time before your meeting starts. You could at least help out a bit." I muttered my complaints to his back as he walked towards the door. I knew better than to argue loudly, or he'd come back at me tenfold.
Mommy, I want you to do it.
The bus is almost here, hurry up. If you don't want to go to preschool, fine, don't. Do whatever you want.
Mom, Dad's mad.
It was a standoff between my stubborn son and my hot-headed husband. With my sleep deprivation from nighttime feedings, their argument was giving me a headache.
Josh threw a tantrum as he got on the bus. Thanks to that, I was embarrassed. It's your bad parenting.
As I heard the bus leave, I felt a moment of relief knowing Josh was safely on his way. But then Gary's complaints started. He clearly hated parenting and used every opportunity to lash out. "Could you talk quieter? You're going to wake Jenny." She had just fallen asleep after feeding, and I had a mountain of chores to do while she napped. If she woke up, it would ruin everything. I glared at him.
What do you think you are? You live off my income. And where's my breakfast? You didn't make it, did you?
"It's on the table. You can at least toast your own bread." I had been busy all morning making lunches, feeding Josh, and getting him dressed. Gary's breakfast was wrapped and ready.
You expect the breadwinner to fend for himself? Ugh, and the food's cold. You want me to eat cold food?
He couldn't even microwave it? Unbelievable.
You have it easy. You can nap when the kids do. I have to deal with my boss every day. I love to switch places with you for a day.
This was his usual venting session. Even though I was exhausted from managing the house and kids, I always listened to his rants. Enough was enough. I barely got any sleep, and I didn't have time to eat breakfast because I was so busy. My irritation boiled over. I never imagined this one comment would reveal his true nature. "Fine. I'll go back to work and you can be the stay-at-home parent." He laughed.
You really think anyone would hire a woman with no skills? Huh, get real.
If I put my mind to it, I can do anything.
Yeah, right. The only thing you had going for you was your looks, and now that's gone. Huh, don't kid yourself.
I'm not joking. I'm serious. I wasn't speaking on impulse. I truly wanted to go back to work. I was once a model for this fashion magazine because I won my university's beauty contest. Despite my looks, I had a quiet personality. I had no regrets leaving the glamorous world to get married, but I did enjoy my days as a model. Now, my life was filled with the loneliness of non-stop housework and childcare. When my son turned 2, I wanted to put him in daycare and return to work, but Gary shut me down. He even pressured me into having a second child to keep me from re-entering the workforce. Remembering this, I looked down.
Give it up. You'll never manage. There's only one place that might hire you. A wrestling team.
Ugh, that's just cruel. Too cruel.
Huh, who's the cruel one? I married you because you were beautiful. And now, you're just fat. I'll say it again. Huh, I didn't marry a pig.
Is that what you've been thinking all this time? His words cut deep again.
You know, watching you nurse Jenny looked just like a pig nursing. Just disgusting. And now you've got a belly. I married you because you were stylish and beautiful, but now I feel like I got scammed.
I bit my lip, holding back tears from his relentless insults.
Oh, and don't forget, we're going to my parents' house in 2 days, so get ready.
Even in this situation, his demanding tone hadn't changed. His parents were even worse, always making snide comments. The day we visited his parents,
Welcome. Josh and Jenny, you have grown so much.
Hello, it's been a while. Nice to see you again. Even though it had been half a year, his parents greeted us with smiles, but soon enough, the usual jabs started.
Is that you, Leah?
Yes, it's me.
Wow, I almost didn't recognize you.
She took Jenny from my arms, her voice shrill with fake surprise.
No way, really? Oh, wow, I'm shocked.
Yep, I'm Leah. How many times did I have to repeat myself to this woman? She kept looking me up and down with a nasty grin.
I know that after childbirth it's common to gain weight, but I've never seen anyone's appearance change this much,
said my father-in-law, looking at me like I was some sort of rare animal. It might be due to hormonal imbalance from pregnancy and childbirth. Plus, I ended up eating the kids' leftovers. I explained, feeding my face burn with embarrassment as they kept commenting on my weight. I tried to justify my postpartum weight gain to them.
Huh, don't make excuses. Mom, listen to this. She naps with the kids during the day. No wonder she's gained so much weight living such a lazy life.
Gary sneered, glancing at me with contempt.
Maybe so. In our time, we only rested for 3 weeks after giving birth, and then went straight back to work. Young people today have it easy,
his mother said.
Right? She can't even manage her own weight. She's a pig. I thought about putting a pigsty sign on the bedroom door.
He laughed. What the? I was trembling with rage at his relentless insults meant to provoke his parents against me.
Oh, Gary, that's too much.
My mother-in-law laughed.
Even Sandra at the butcher's said it was hard to lose weight after having kids.
Exactly,
his father chimed in.
Karen at the dinner still hasn't lost the weight after all these years. Leah might even surpass Karen.
That's right, Leah. You're now the biggest woman in the neighborhood.
They laughed, holding their stomachs.
It's not a joke, Mom, Dad. I feel like I've been swindled,
Garen complained.
You're exaggerating, but maybe you're right. Everyone used to say you married the prettiest woman in town. Now we'll have to say you married the biggest woman, his mother added.
Leah's made you guys embarrassed. Hey, Leah, apologize to them. Aren't you even thinking about losing weight after all this?
Gary's relentless criticism made me reach my breaking point. If it weren't for the kids, I might have run out of the house right then. Josh was playing on his grandfather's lap, and Jenny was sleeping in her grandmother's arms. I couldn't tear the kids away from their grandparents. I forced a smile to get through it, but inside I was shattered.
What was with that attitude at my parents' place? You were sulking the whole time.
Gary snapped on the drive home.
Do you even care about my parents? You should treat them better. Huh, you really pissed me off.
He continued. Hey, the kids are sleeping. Could you keep your voice down? Are you going to take care of them if they wake up?
What? You're talking back to me? After everything I do for you? Just wait till we get home.
He threatened, his hands tight on the steering wheel. He was so angry I worried he'd cause an accident and hurt the kids. So, I stayed silent like a clam for the rest of the ride. When we got home that night, I put the kids to bed and soaked in a lukewarm bath, letting the tears flow. Remembering the cruel words from Gary and his parents made my heart ache. I pressed a towel to my face to muffle my sobs. I was at my breaking point. When I saw the pigsty sign on our bedroom door, my resolve hardened. A week later, Gary asked,
Hey, where are my socks?
Find them yourself. I'm not your mother.
I don't think of you as my mother. You're a maid, even less than a maid. You're my attendant. You'll be taking care of me forever. You're demoted from wife to attendant, fatty.
He laughed. You can say that now, but not for long, I muttered.
What? Huh, you think you're tough? If you're so pissed, why don't you lose some weight? You'll still be doing everything for me, so deal with it.
So infuriating. I whispered in my heart, waiting for him to leave for work so I could set my plan in motion. I packed up clothes and essentials for the kids and me, and arranged for them to be sent to my parents' house. I also informed Josh's preschool about a long break.
Mom, where are we going?
Listen carefully, honey. You have another set of grandparents. They're my parents.
Really? I didn't know that,
he said, surprised. It wasn't his fault. I had never taken the kids to see my parents. I'd been too stubborn. I finally called my parents, swallowing my pride, to ask if we could stay with them for a while. I tearfully told them how Gary and his parents had mocked me.
Oh, Leah, I'm so sorry. Your dad and I are waiting for you. We can't wait to see Josh and Jenny,
my mother said, crying over the phone. My parents live in a rural area, and traveling there by train and bus takes both time and money. My father sent me money to cover the travel costs. Despite my previous stubbornness, my parents welcomed me warmly and gave me strength. I put Jenny in a baby carrier, took Josh by the hand, and left the house with my bank card in my bag. I left the signed divorce papers on the table. I was determined to confront Gary about the divorce.
Welcome back, Leah. Your things have arrived. We'll look after the kids, so you go upstairs and rest,
my mother said as soon as we arrived. I slept soundly until morning for the first time in 4 years. My mother noticed my dull skin, dark circles, and brittle hair, understanding that I was malnourished. She prepared all my favorite foods.
Leah, are you really going to leave Gary? If you're serious about divorce, your mother and I will support you. If you still have doubts, we won't bring it up again,
my father said after breakfast. I want to leave him. I want to start over with my kids, I said firmly.
Okay. Gary is already on his way here.
What? I was shocked. Gary had called while I was sleeping and was now heading to my parents' house. When I turned on my phone, it was filled with missed calls and messages from him saying, "Help me." I reluctantly called him back, dreading the sound of his voice. He answered before the first ring finished.
Why weren't you answering? Where were you?
Where are you?
I'm at a cafe near your parents' house. What the hell do you think you're doing? When I get home, we're going to have a talk.
Didn't you see what was on the table?
How do you plan to live after a divorce?
Shut up. It's none of your business. You said the worst thing you could to me. Don't act like you don't remember.
Pig, right? That was just a slip of the tongue. I was shocked and upset. Yeah, just forget that I said that. Can we talk?
I will never forgive you. Sign the divorce papers. Until you do, I'm keeping the bank card. I don't want to see your face. Leave now.
Fine, but I need $3,000 today. I promise I'll leave once I get it. Please, help me.
An hour later, he showed up at my parents' house.
Leah, talk inside. The kids are upstairs.
Thanks, Mom, but he might start yelling. I don't want the kids to hear, so I'll talk to him in the car. She agreed, and my father offered to sit in the back seat for support. I felt more confident facing Gary with my father and the bank card as leverage.
Did you bring the $3,000?
Gary asked as soon as he saw me. It was just like him to show no concern for the kids. I haven't withdrawn it yet. What do you need it for?
That's none of your business.
Right. We're practically strangers now.
Damn, you've gotten ugly, and your personality's gotten even worse.
Not ugly, just stronger. I carried our children and gave birth to them. To protect their lives, a mother puts herself last. I'd sacrifice anything for my kids' well-being, so this is how I ended up.
So you think it's okay to get fat? I can't even see you as a woman anymore. You should consider my feelings too. I'm a victim here. So that's why you went on a trip with that woman, huh? You caused a hit-and-run accident and fled because you were scared it would come out.
What? I said.
Wait, what? How do you know?
Gary stammered. The voice came from my father in the back seat. His tone was calm, but had the weight of a judge. I was shocked, and Gary turned pale.
What are you talking about, sir? What makes you think that?
Gary tried to deny it, but even I was stunned by this revelation.
Get out of the car,
my father ordered. I got out of the passenger seat, and Gary followed from the driver's seat to confront my father.
Leah, do you remember Troy?
Of course. Troy is my father's brother's son, my cousin, 3 years older than me. What about him?
A month ago, one of his friends was involved in a hit-and-run. They couldn't remember the exact license plate number, so they didn't report it to the police.
It was stranger than fiction to hear this during my divorce discussion. And the driver was Gary?
Yes.
My father confirmed with a heavy nod.
Oh, wait, hold on. I don't remember anything like that. You might not remember, but it's a fact. Gary, if you hadn't chased my daughter all the way to this rural area, you might have gotten away with it. Specifically, if you hadn't gone into that cafe. What are you talking about? That cafe belongs to Troy. His friend spotted your car, matched the vehicle description and part of the license plate, and called him immediately. No way. That's impossible. Do you know how many cars like mine are out there? Stop making excuses. You really are an idiot. Making your mistress wait in that cafe, huh? Troy's friend recognized her face and confirmed it. She even gave them your name. What?
Gary's face turned ashen.
Look at this emoji.
My father showed us his phone displaying a message from Troy with a screaming face emoji. Despite the serious topic of Gary's infidelity, I couldn't help but laugh for the first time in a long while. My father waved to a car parked a few dozen feet away. Troy stepped out of the driver's seat and said,
Leah, long time no see. How have you been? I heard you're getting divorced. Congratulations. And get rid of this worthless guy already.
What? I was taken aback by his support.
Mind your own business.
Gary, soon to be my ex-husband, foolishly snapped at Troy.
You made Leah cry, you bastard.
Troy said, grabbing Gary by the collar.
You called her a pig, didn't you?
He had clearly heard everything from my mother.
Leah, it must have been tough. But thanks to that sticker, we found the hit-and-run driver quickly. Karma really does come around. Spitting in the wind just gets you wet. In your case, it's going to be worse. You might end up dealing with the police. Seriously?
Gary quivered, looking at the sticker Troy pointed to. The sticker read, Pixie on board, which Gary had put on the car before the bedroom door.
Uncle, can I punch him?
Troy asked my father.
No. You're a black belt in karate and a former boxer. You'd kill him, and he's not worth it. Don't do it.
My father advised. Both their words made Gary pale and tremble. Watching him squirm gave me a sense of satisfaction. Later, Troy took Gary to the cafe where Troy's friend confronted him about the hit and run. Whether they settled it or filed charges, I didn't care. Gary's demand for $3,000 was to pay for his mistress's abortion. Knowing that, I was relieved he had followed me all the way to my parents' house. When she saw the Pixie on board sticker, she thought he had been mocking her and went ballistic. A year later, with the help of a lawyer, the divorce was finalized and we divided our assets. Gary and his mistress both paid the alimony I had demanded. The $1,300 monthly child support would be saved for Josh and Jenny's future. After refreshing myself at my parents' house, I felt ready to start working again and put Jenny in daycare.
Leah, you have an interview today, right? Good luck. There's no rush to start working, you know.
Thanks, Mom. I appreciate everything you and Dad have done for me, I replied. After a year of relying on my parents, I was less stressed and had lost weight. My skin was glowing again. Mom, Troy's here, Josh said with a smile. Even Jenny had warmed up to him and was being carried in his arms.
Leah, I'll drive you to the station. Hop in.
Thanks, Troy.
No problem. You look amazing, by the way. But you know, no matter what, you'll always be my adorable cousin.
Hearing him calling me amazing meant more than any compliment I'd ever received. He promised to play a fatherly role for the kids for a while. As he gripped the steering wheel with his strong hands and laughed heartily, I felt truly blessed to have such wonderful people in my life.
My husband said he'd give our house to his brother, threatening divorce if I disagreed. But I inherited it from Grandpa. When I told him,
If you don't listen to what I say, it's divorce. A husband who says such selfish things is someone I'd rather do without. I accept the divorce card handed to me by my husband, Matt. My husband looks pleased as he gazes at me. I don't even know what will happen from now on. My name is Evelyn. I'm 35 years old, married for 5 years, and live with my husband. Although I do want children, we haven't been blessed with any. We considered infertility treatment, but at my husband's insistence, we decided not to undergo treatment and leave it to nature. If it's not possible, living just the two of us as a married couple is also a life. I felt somewhat relieved because my husband said so. After getting married, my husband's parents passed away, one after another, and we were too busy to have time for treatment. Actually, my husband is a real dictator. We originally had a superior-subordinate relationship at work. He would openly call me a foolish wife in front of relatives and wouldn't hesitate to scold me mercilessly if there was any mistake. Since we had a superior-subordinate relationship even before we got married, that relationship has continued even after marriage. Saying such things might make my husband seem like a bad person, but he also has a kind side. When I was his subordinate, he would give me precise advice and guidance when I made mistakes or things didn't go well at work, and he would also praise and reward me. And above all, when my beloved grandfather passed away, and I was feeling down, it was my husband who encouraged me. We then started dating, and eventually got married. I resigned from my job, and now I'm a full-time housewife. Hey, Evelyn, I'm home. Welcome back. Today, my husband returned home after 9 p.m. as usual, As a manager, he has a heavy workload and is almost always working overtime. You worked late again today. Thank you for your hard work. As I pick up the shirt and socks my husband discarded, I speak to him. My husband slumped on the sofa and says nothing. This is also usual. He must be really tired. I start preparing dinner so that my husband can eat right away, and when I finish cooking and setting the table, he starts eating hungrily. After finishing his meal in about 10 minutes, he heads to the bathroom. I prepare a bath towel and underwear, then clean up after dinner. When he comes out of the bath, my husband heads straight to the bedroom. My husband has always been taciturn, but lately, perhaps due to his promotion, he seems more fatigued. For about a year now, we've hardly had any conversations as a couple. But I trust and love my husband. After all, he helped me when I was at rock bottom. When I was in junior high school, my father passed away. And when I was a first-year high school student, my mother passed away. After that, I was taken in and raised by my grandfather. My grandfather raised me as if I were his own daughter, showering me with love and care. I loved my kind and warm grandfather dearly. I wanted to repay him a lot once I got a job. With that in mind, after I got a job, I saved money and took my grandfather on trips and enjoyed delicious meals together. I wish that my grandfather could stay healthy and happy forever, as we enjoyed spending time together. However, 3 years after I started working, my grandfather passed away from lung cancer. I literally became an orphan. I knew that parting with my grandfather was inevitable, but I never expected it to happen so soon. I wanted to have more time with my grandfather. I wanted to be with him more. I spent every night crying in sadness. My husband, who was my supervisor at the time, noticed the change in me. He listened to me empathetically and said, "That must have been tough. You did well." I'm really glad he was my boss. My husband, who is usually strict and scary, spoke kind words to me at that time. I'm sure my husband is actually a kind person. I know that. So I want to continue to support my husband in the future. That's what I feel. On one such holiday afternoon, the home phone rang. Hello? Oh, it's you, Evelyn. The caller was my husband's brother, John. Oh, it's been a while. What's up? I need to talk to my brother for a bit. Is he there? Sure, just a moment. I called out to my husband, who was relaxing in the living room. It's for you on the phone. As expected, there was no response. My husband silently took the receiver. Hey, John, how are you? What's up? He went from having a grim expression just moments ago to smiling as soon as he answered his brother's call. My brother-in-law is 15 years younger than my husband. Due to the age difference, my husband is very fond of his younger brother. I heard that my brother-in-law, who got married to a lovely wife 2 years ago, has been living happily, but I wondered what happened. Huh, is that so? Are you okay with that? My husband's tone changed from earlier and became more serious. I wonder what's going on. I see. If there's anything troubling you, just tell me, okay? I'm your big brother, after all. My husband said that and hung up the phone. What's wrong? Is something the matter? It seems like my brother got laid off. Huh, laid off? I was shocked. I never expected something like that to happen. Well, I've heard that the company has been tough for a while, but I never thought it would lead to layoffs. My husband sat down on a chair with a dejected look. I couldn't hide my shock either. My brother-in-law has a completely different personality from my husband. He's kind, laid back, and always humble. He's shown me kindness as a sister-in-law, and even when my husband criticized me in front of relatives. Matt, it's not nice to say that. It's unfair to Evelyn. He'd protect me and say, I'm sorry, Evelyn. My brother's being rude. He always showed consideration for me. John's wife is also a similar person, and I had a good impression of them as a couple. For John and his wife, I wondered if there was anything I could do. I wanted to help them even a little bit. That was my intention. Hey, is there anything I can do to help? My husband looked at me intently. What do you mean, anything? Well, I was thinking if there's something I could do to cheer up your brother a little. My husband sighed at my words. Ugh, you really are useless. You, who have never been out in the real world, wouldn't understand, but this is the toughest time for him. How can you casually say you want to do something when he's going through a hard time like this? Outsiders should stay out of it. Faced with such an aggressive attitude, I couldn't help but respond. It seems that what I said with good intentions touched a nerve with my husband. Am I not part of the family too, even though I'm an outsider? I say to my husband, squeezing the words out. Family, you're just my wife. You have nothing to do with my brother. Irrelevant. Outsider. His words pierced my heart. He had never been this aggressive before. The shock of my brother-in-law's layoff must have been that severe. Just because it was a small matter doesn't mean there aren't good and bad things to say. Anyway, don't meddle in unnecessary matters. With that, my husband went outside. Since then, he became even more domineering towards me. What's with you? Learn from my brother's wife. What were you doing at home today? Even though my brother's wife is at home, she keeps the house clean and does the chores properly. I've never seen such an unreasonable husband before. I wonder what could have happened. Can't you cut it out for once? What on earth is going on? As you can imagine, I argued with my husband. Shut up. Everything's a mess because of you. My husband starts saying nonsensical things. There's no reasoning with him. Gradually, our conversations cease and our relationship only deepens in silence. I have begun to doubt my relationship with my husband. One day, something unusual happened. My husband was sorting through belongings since morning. He was categorizing what to keep and what not to, filling up garbage bags like it's a major cleanup. What is he doing? But lately, there's been a chill between us. I didn't have the energy to engage, so I said nothing about my husband's actions. However, strangely, my husband initiated the conversation. Hey, what are you doing? Get ready, too. Huh? What? We're moving. We're giving this house to my brother and his wife. What? What are you talking about? Upon asking, I learned that my husband intends to hand over the house we, as a couple, live in to his struggling brother and his brother's wife. Hold on. Why such a selfish decision? Shut up. Don't defy me. My husband starts yelling at me loudly, but I don't back down. Didn't you say you wanted to do something for my brother? That's completely different, isn't it? Besides, if we hand this place over, where are we going to live? We can figure that out later. Right now, my brother needs help from me, his elder brother. My husband is entirely dictating the conversation. Besides, my brother-in-law is not the type to kick us out and take over someone else's house. So why? When I give my husband a suspicious look, he hands me something. If you're going to argue so much, you're no longer useful. Get divorced and leave right away. He throws the completed divorce papers at me. I'm taken aback by the sudden mention of divorce. My husband's unexpected actions stun me, but oddly, it feels strangely fitting. I didn't feel like I could continue being married to my husband. Perhaps this is a good opportunity. I silently pick up the divorce papers from the floor and fill them out. My husband looks at me with a smug expression. His face looks ridiculous, and I almost burst out laughing. After filling out the divorce papers, I bring up the topic with my husband. This house isn't yours, is it? This house is the house I spent time in with my grandfather, and the land belonged to my late grandfather, both of which I inherited, right? Did you forget? When I say this, my husband looks dumbfounded. Even though it's in my name, how are you planning to transfer it? How? I press my husband for answers. Well? My husband suddenly becomes flustered. Could it be you forgot? Before we got married, didn't you move into my house because you thought paying rent was wasteful? It's in my name, so I've been paying the property tax for the house and land every year. And you haven't contributed a penny, have you? That's... Well, it doesn't matter anymore. Once I submit this notice, the divorce will be final, and we'll be strangers. Wait a minute. Let's talk this over. Calm down. That's my line. Just filing for divorce so easily? Are you always this selfish until the end? Unbelievable. I vented all the accumulated frustrations at him. I loved my husband, and I thought he loved me too. But maybe I was mistaken. I never thought our marriage would end so easily.
Emily, wait. It's a misunderstanding. Let's talk.
Talk about what? Wasn't it you who first brought up divorce? I'm tired of you. Saying this, I carefully put away the completed divorce papers. It's a holiday today, so I'll submit them to the city hall first thing tomorrow morning. My husband is lying on the floor in a daze.
This can't be true. How?
He mutters incoherently. Without sympathy, I say, "This is my house. Leave right away. Once the papers are filed, we're strangers. I can't live under the same roof as a stranger." Despite my husband's resistance until the last moment, I remained steadfast. Because he's just a stranger now, there's no need to hesitate. Even when my husband cried and clung to me, I felt nothing. And so my husband left as if nothing happened. Our divorce spread like wildfire throughout his company. My husband started being looked at with suspicion. Details about the divorce and my husband's behavior throughout our marriage circulated as gossip, and he lost his standing in the company. I wonder who spread the rumors. I only answered what I was asked by my husband's colleagues and subordinates, nothing more. And about 6 months after the divorce, on my way back from the real estate agents, I unexpectedly ran into someone I didn't want to see. It was my ex-husband. Well, he's my ex now, but it seemed like he was waiting for me to come out of the real estate agent's office. It felt creepy. Even if I tried to ignore him, my husband kept following me. Fed up, I reluctantly agreed to talk. "Stop it. If you have something to say it and leave."
Evelyn, I've always hated you.
Huh? What's he suddenly talking about? I learned that my husband had thought I was responsible for his brother's layoff. Huh? Why would it be my fault?
Since I married you, bad things have been happening.
Come to think of it, after marrying my husband, his parents passed away and he got injured. But his father had been hospitalized before we married, and his mother was always frail. Furthermore, my husband's fall was his own fault for not paying attention. Nevertheless, my husband seemed to think that I was the cause of his misfortune. "So you thought all the misfortune was my fault?" "I always thought you were just clumsy whenever you acted badly, but you were just shifting the blame, weren't you?" I was just amazed by my husband. He just blames others and is really selfish, and without any evidence. And yet, he managed to hold a managerial position in his company. I worried that his subordinates might also be criticized without reason. When did this reliable boss become such a person? And I couldn't help but feeling a little pathetic about being married to such a person.
But even after divorcing you, bad things keep happening to me.
What bad things? When I asked, my husband rolled up his sleeves. His skin was visibly blistered and injured from burns.
Actually, 3 months ago, my apartment caught fire, and that's not all. I keep losing my wallet and making mistakes at work. Plus, my brother has been cold lately, and I can't reach him.
So even after divorcing me, the misfortune continues. Of course it does. Frankly, even if I heard such stories, I couldn't feel sorry for him or pity him. After all, everything was his doing, and it had nothing to do with me.
Please, Evelyn, come back. I can't make it without you. What? Haven't we been living as husband and wife until now? And when you were working, didn't I take care of a lot of things for you? And when your grandfather died, didn't I help you a lot?
I felt repulsed by the man standing before me, trying to guilt-trip me. All your misfortunes are your own doing, aren't they? Maybe you should reflect on yourself a little. Try to stop blaming others for everything. Saying this, I walked away from my husband.
Evelyn, wait, Evelyn, Evelyn.
My husband called my name, trying to stop me. But pretending to be a stranger, I disappeared into the crowd. About a week after the divorce, I received a message from my brother-in-law. Well, he's my ex-brother-in-law now.
Sis? No. It's just Evelyn now, right? It's about my brother.
According to what John told me, it was my husband's decision alone to offer the house we lived in to his brother. John and his wife didn't know anything about it.
Matt, he's always had this tendency to be showy, so I've always been worried. His attitude towards you, Evelyn, was terrible, and I always felt bad watching him with you.
He's a really kind person. Why are brothers so different? I'm not sure if I should say this, but I think I'm glad you got divorced. I hope you find happiness too. Thank you. I'm glad you said that. I was happy to hear those words. And John soon found a job and seemed to be able to manage his life somehow. I'm really glad. I've been thinking of keeping my distance from my brother. Surely John must have had his own thoughts on this matter. He says he plans to gradually cut ties with Matt. This is why my husband has lost contact with his own brother. Having divorced his wife and become estranged from his beloved brother, my husband has truly become all alone. I hope he realizes the gravity of the mistakes he's made someday. But before that, I need to vanish from my husband's sight. That day, when I met my husband again, I had signed a contract with a real estate agent to rent out the house I inherited from my grandfather. That house is too big for me. However, I can't bring myself to let go of that house filled with memories of my grandfather. If possible, I want someone who truly wants to live there to reside in it. I'll change my phone number, move to a new place, and completely sever ties with my husband. I'm only 35 years old, and my life is far from over.
My husband, give your savings to mom. Me, it's for the kids. At in-laws, Sil confronts my husband. Who do you think you are?
I've been saving money I earned from working hard since my single days. After getting married, I continued saving diligently. But I never thought my savings would be used for something like that. Just because we're married doesn't mean anything goes. I'll do whatever it takes to protect my kids' future. My name is Julie, and I'm 33 years old. I married my husband David when I was 24, and I got pregnant right away. We now have 2 kids. Our son is 7, and our daughter is 5. They've both been healthy and growing well every day. When my daughter turned 3, I went back to my old job. It's been 2 years since then, and now I make about as much as my husband does. I sometimes hold back a bit so I don't hurt his pride, but he doesn't know that. David only puts in the minimum amount for living expenses, so all the savings for myself and the kids come from my paycheck. I really wish he would help more, but he always gets annoyed when we talk about money, and it makes the kids uneasy. So we made it a rule not to talk about money in front of him. One day, my mother-in-law Mary came over. That day, I happened to be working from home because of the pandemic. "Julie, please, can I stay with you for a while?" "Mary, what's wrong all of a sudden?" "My husband is asking for a divorce." "What? Divorce?" I was shocked. Mary and her husband Scott are known as a very happy couple in the neighborhood. I couldn't believe Scott would ask for a divorce. I couldn't just leave her crying, so I invited her inside. I decided to listen to what she had to say. "Mary, I'm sorry to ask when you're so upset, but why did he suddenly ask for a divorce?" She sniffled and started to explain. "I haven't done anything wrong, but my husband says he can't live with me anymore and wants a divorce. It's so unfair." "What? He really said that? Don't you think it's terrible? You must feel sorry for me too, right?" She was so intense that it felt overwhelming. But I couldn't believe kind Scott would ask for a divorce without a reason. Maybe she was hiding something from me. Something that made that kind man angry. I tried to calm her down and waited for my husband to come home. When David got back, we put the kids to bed and started talking with Mary. "Mom, why is this divorce thing happening?" When he asked, she started crying again. "You tell me. I've always worked so hard for him, and out of nowhere, he says he can't live with me anymore. Can you believe it?" There's no way Scott would say something like that without a reason, I thought. Listening to her wasn't getting us anywhere. She could be pretty selfish at times, so I figured the divorce might be her fault. "Mary, are you sure there's nothing you can think of? I just can't believe Scott would ask for a divorce without a good reason. When I suddenly defended Scott, she glared at me. Julie, are you taking his side? I've been a good wife and he's the one asking for a divorce. Shouldn't you be on my side? It's not about sides. I just can't believe he'd ask for a divorce without a reason. You know he's not like that. What do you know about him? You're really defending him. Are you having an affair with him? What? The conversation was going off track. Of course there was nothing going on between me and Scott. David stepped in. Mom, that's not true. Julie isn't into older guys. Mary calmed down, which was a relief. Still, something felt off. She kept insisting she did nothing wrong, but wouldn't explain why Scott wanted a divorce. I asked David to call his father over, even though it was late. Mary said, I don't want to see him, and left the house. Scott arrived, looking apologetic. I'm sorry for causing you trouble, Julie. I decided to get to the bottom of it. Scott, I'm sorry to ask this, but why did you ask for a divorce? He looked troubled and answered, Actually, she used up all my savings, all 170K. 170K? You mean $170,000? I couldn't help but shout at the amount. Yeah, $170,000. It's unbelievable, right? I was curious about how she could have spent such a large amount. What did she spend it on? I asked, trying to stay calm. He sighed deeply. She just keeps saying she spent it on living expenses. That can't be true. I give her a set amount every month for living expenses. Plus, I give her an allowance. She's lying, right? After hearing his story, I felt bad, but I couldn't help thinking it was possible. Mary often came to our house asking, Can you lend me some money? She even tried to take money from my wallet without asking, saying it was fine because we were family. Ever since then, I have been more cautious around her, so Scott's story seemed believable. She could totally do that. Scott looked defeated and said, If she could explain what she spent it on and pay it back, I might reconsider the divorce. But she just keeps saying it was for living expenses, and we're getting nowhere. I felt really sorry for him. Even if living expenses are high, Scott has a high-paying job at a big company. It's hard to believe living expenses would eat up his entire salary. On top of that, he gives her an allowance, and yet she managed to spend $170,000 in a year. Mary must be out of her mind. At this point, my husband, who had been quiet, spoke up. So, if she pays the money back, the divorce is off the table? Yeah. Got it. I'll talk to Mom. Leave it to me. David assured his father. But then a question arose. How is Mary, a housewife, going to pay the money back? Surely David wouldn't cover for her, right? After Scott left, Mary came back. So, what happened? Did he say anything? She bombarded me with questions, and David confidently answered. I had a bad feeling. Mom, if you pay back the $170K you spent, Dad won't divorce you. She snapped back. Impossible! I don't have that kind of money. Besides, I only spent it on living expenses. I did nothing wrong. It was clear she believed she had done nothing wrong. At this point, I thought, maybe Scott should just go ahead with the divorce. David then said something unbelievable. Don't worry, Mom. Julie has plenty of savings. What? I couldn't believe he was offering my money. Mary looked at me with hopeful eyes. Really? You should have said so earlier. This way I won't have to get divorced. No. You can't just take someone else's savings like that. This is absurd. I try to stay calm. I'm not lending my savings. If you need money, ask David. David, for some reason, got angry. Julie, come on. My mom is in trouble. Don't you want to help her? Yeah, your savings could help me. You don't want me to get divorced, right? She joined in, making even less sense. They were really two of a kind. I felt deep sympathy for Scott. My defiance enraged David even more. Enough, Julie. My mom says she's in trouble and you can't lend her $170K? Can't you help her out a bit? You say that like it's nothing, but we're talking $170,000 here. Something inside me snapped. Then you get the money. If it's just $170K for you, you can get it, right? It's not a big deal for you, but it is for me. This money, I saved it little by little since I was single. It's for our kids' future. Why should I spend it on your mom? I unleashed all my anger. Mary was dumbfounded, and David looked shocked. He grabbed my hand and pulled me outside. We're going to my parents' house. My sister will convince you. What? He forced me into the front seat and his mother into the back. He drove recklessly to his parents' house. This was bad because his sister, Kelly, hated me. She adored David and resented me for marrying him. When we first met, she said, I will never accept you as family. Don't talk to me again. Goodbye. We hadn't spoken since, but I knew she would side with David. This would be a disaster. As soon as we arrived, I tried to escape, but David grabbed my arm and pulled me inside. There sat Kelly, glaring at me. What was going to happen to me now? With Kelly involved, I didn't think I could protect my savings. Ignoring my anxiety, David explained everything to his sister. As she listened, Kelly's face grew red. She stood up and approached me. Her hand came towards my face. I braced myself for a slap, but it didn't happen. Instead, she hugged me tightly. What? David and his mother were both shocked by the unexpected sight. Of course, I was the most surprised, but I was also confused about what was happening. Kelly said, Julie, I'm really sorry. My idiot brother has said something outrageous. It's okay now. Leave it to me and get some rest. Kelly said, seating me on the couch and turning to face my husband and Mary with a devilish look. Who do you two think you are? Why are you mad at us, sis? The one who should be blamed is Julie for not giving up the $170K. Isn't it a wife's duty to make life easier for her mother-in-law? My husband criticized me, standing his ground, but Kelly shouted at him. Who the hell do you think you are? If you want to make her life easier, do it yourself. And $170,000. Do you have any idea how hard it is to make that much money? I couldn't help but admire her courage. But why was she, who had been my enemy, standing up for me? As I pondered, she seemed to read my mind. The truth is, at first, I hated you because you took my beloved brother away. But over time, hearing about how hard you worked, raising kids and managing a job, I started to like you. I realized you could be trusted with my brother. I promised myself I'd help you if you ever needed it. Really? Yeah, but I never thought my brother would mess up like this, she said with a smile. She then turned to her mother and began to scold her. Mom, stop lying already. What do you mean? I know you're seeing a host. You've been spending money on him, haven't you? What was his name? Stanley, was it? Kelly showed us several pictures on her phone. In the images, Mary was handing envelopes of cash to a host-looking guy. The dates showed she did this every Monday. Mom, what's this about? It's not what it looks like. I was just giving him my allowance. I didn't use the living expenses. She defended herself. So she didn't deny the spending. That's not possible. I only give you about $500 a month. How could you be giving him thousands of dollars every week? Why are you here, honey? My husband looked panicked. It seemed he and Mary had forgotten Scott might be home. Still thinking he could win, David turned to me and said, If you refuse, then I'll divorce you. Divorce? You'll divorce me? You can't do that, can you? I bet you're not ready to be a single mom. If you don't want that, give Mom the $170,000. If it were just me, I might agree to the divorce. But I have kids to consider. Even if I got custody, taking their father away would be hard on them. Kelly then interrupted my thoughts. Julie, listen carefully. If you stay with this terrible father, your kids will grow up just like him. But your kids might turn out awful like him. It's better if he's not around. If being single is hard, I'll support you. Do it for your kids. Her words brought me to tears. She was right. I needed to do this. I turned to David. Let's get divorced. What? Do you know what you're saying? I know exactly what I'm saying. This is the best way for me and the kids to be happy. I'll take custody and you'll pay alimony and child support. With that, I left and went straight to City Hall to get the divorce papers. I quickly signed them and brought them back to the house. Kelly said, Leave the rest to me. I'll make sure he signs. Thank you. As I was about to leave, David grabbed my arm. Are you really going to divorce me? This can't be real. Oh, yes, it is. Just like that? Excuse me? You're the one who asked for a divorce. But... The next morning, I submitted the divorce papers at City Hall. Kelly had brought them to me early in the morning. A week later, we had a meeting at the lawyer's office with my ex-husband, my ex-in-laws, my parents, and me. My ex-husband and his parents had been thoroughly scolded by Kelly and Scott. They agreed to the conditions. I got custody, and they would pay alimony and child support. A year later, I haven't seen my ex-husband or ex-mother-in-law. It seems she couldn't stop seeing hosts and used her son's money this time. Fed up, my ex-husband asked for a job transfer and moved without telling anyone. He now lives with distant relatives, helping with farming. I live with my kids at my parents' house. It's close to my workplace, and I'm very grateful to my parents for taking us in. I'll be a single mom for a while, but I have no regrets. I'm still steadily saving money for my kids' future. I'll work hard to make sure they don't suffer.
My husband belittled me, saying, after childbirth, you're not a woman anymore. It took me several years to get revenge, but it was worth it.
I'm Kimberly, and I'm 28 years old. I have been married for 2 years. My husband Sullivan is 29 years old and works as an office worker at a major company. Sullivan, my senior from the same university club, confessed his feelings to me and we started dating, eventually getting married 2 years ago. We live in a condominium about an hour away from the city center. Until we got married, I worked as an office admin, but I quit my job when I got pregnant, and now I work from home as a web writer and illustrator. However, my husband doesn't understand my work and thinks I'm just playing around when I'm on the computer.
Stop messing around on the computer already.
He even says things like that. Even though my monthly income averages $2,000 and sometimes exceeds $5,000. Last year, our child was born and we named her Sage. She's a cute girl. Both mother and child are healthy, but the truth is, I have gained weight recently. I was originally on the slim side, so during my pregnancy and after giving birth, the doctor told me to manage my health and ensure I got enough nutrition. I took nutritional supplements and increased my food intake for the baby's sake. As a result, I gained a bit of weight. I also stopped being as diligent with my makeup, and with being busy taking care of the baby, I just haven't had the time. Seeing me like this, my husband has started to say hurtful things.
Women really change after giving birth. You've gained weight. You don't wear makeup anymore. Once you've had a baby, you're not a woman anymore. I can't see you as a woman anymore.
The words "I can't see you as a woman" were burned into my head. What horrible words. I was so furious I thought my head would explode. I'll definitely get back at Sullivan. And I want to tell him, I can't see you as a man anymore. I swore to get back at him, and I resolved to become a good-looking woman again. Recently, at Sullivan's suggestion, we've been sleeping in separate bedrooms. Well, I'm exhausted from taking care of the baby, so it's actually nice to be able to rest alone. Not to brag, but I was quite popular when I was younger. I had a slender figure and decent looks. In high school, I was on the track team and was even nicknamed Gazelle. First, I decided to transform myself. I'm going to work hard on my diet. Of course, it's not about extreme food restrictions, but a slow and steady approach with exercise and fat-burning supplements. I'll use Sage as a dumbbell for home workouts. Even though she's a baby, at 6 months old, she weighs about 13 pounds, so it's quite a workout. With consistent effort, I started seeing some results. I also switched to a healthier diet with more vegetables. Next, I'll transform Sullivan. Currently, Sullivan is of average build. He has a well-balanced body. I planned to turn this into middle-aged Flab. I chose meals high in meat, fats, sugars, and calories. Since Sullivan loves meat, I made sure every meal was meat-centered, and for drinks it was mainly beer with snacks like salami and cheese, whatever he wanted. Recently, my husband has been going to his parents' house for meals more often. Sullivan's mother dotes on him, and Sullivan is a bit of a mama's boy. Whenever he goes back to his parents' house, his mother undoubtedly serves him high-calorie feasts. This is perfect for me. Sullivan didn't seem to notice my efforts and continued to mock my figure. His mother, who occasionally visits, only feed him his favorite foods.
Are you making sure Sullivan is eating properly, Kimberly? When he comes to our house, his appetite is enormous. He even eats 3 bowls of rice.
My foolish husband went along with it.
Yeah, there's nothing like Mom's cooking. Kimberly's is okay, but the only one who really knows what I like is Mom.
He's always bringing us food and acting like a doting parent who can't let go of his child. My mother-in-law is on my side. My diet was going well, but Sullivan didn't show any interest at all. My mother-in-law still comes over and belittles my work.
Kimberly, are you still playing around on the computer?
No, I'm not playing. I'm working.
That can't be true. Sullivan says all you do is write things or send emails. It doesn't look like work at all.
But I get paid for it.
Really? But doesn't Sullivan earn enough money? Shouldn't you be doing more housework instead of playing around?
I do enough housework. Besides, Sullivan doesn't help out at all. Can't you do something about that?
Sullivan works hard at his job, so as his wife, you should do everything at home, right?
That's enough. The conversation is going in circles and there's no way to resolve it. It's frustrating, but I have no choice but to stay quiet for now. One day, I'll make sure they see how capable I am. I decided to pretend to go along with this foolish mother and son, using the thought of proving them wrong someday as motivation. One day on a weekend, Sullivan said he was going to visit his parents and left the house. As usual, I just said okay and sent him off. Sage was having milk and taking a nap. I started working on the tasks that had piled up. It was nice to have some quiet time for a change. I wish it could always be like this, but before long, Sullivan came back. To my surprise, he was with his mother. Welcome back. Oh, did your mother come with you?
Yeah, I was talking with her at her place. She's in the living room, so bring some coffee and join us, Kimberly.
Hello, Kimberly. Is Sage sleeping? It's so quiet.
As I was told, I made some coffee and brought it to the living room.
As a matter of fact, I've decided to have my mom stay here for a while starting today.
I almost spit out my coffee. Starting on today? Your mom is staying over?
Yes, I'm here to help you take care of Sage. And also...
Oh my, this is so sudden. I'm a bit confused.
There are many things I want to teach you, Kimberly, so I'll be staying for a while.
Later, get out the guest airbed and air it out. I'm going shopping with Mom.
With that, Sullivan and his mother went out. I sighed and started cleaning up. In the late afternoon, just as I was thinking about starting to prepare dinner, Sullivan and his mother returned. Welcome back.
We're back. I think we bought too much. There was hardly anything here.
We're back. Mom's making dinner tonight, so she'll be teaching you a few things.
Okay, thank you, Mother.
Leave it to me. We're having Sullivan's favorite special curry tonight.
Curry seems simple enough, so maybe she won't be too critical. Or so I thought, but I was wrong. My mother-in-law insisted on making the roux from scratch. I made the roux by browning flour and adding curry powder. It's impossible to do something this time-consuming during a busy dinner time. My mother-in-law is a full-time housewife, so she probably doesn't worry about time. But I'm a working mom, juggling a job, housework, and childcare. Store-bought roux exists to save time for people like me. Even though my mother-in-law said she'd make dinner, I was the one doing everything, peeling hot potatoes, browning the meat as she instructed, and so on. The different atmosphere woke up Sage, who started crying.
Hey, Sage is crying. Take care of it.
Sullivan, fiddling with his phone, ordered me around. He never helps with the housework or childcare.
You married into this family, so you should obey your parents and husband. Just do as you're told.
You're married in and gave us a child, but since it's a girl, you need to have a boy soon. Otherwise, there was no point in us accepting you as a daughter-in-law.
I think the same. But since Sage was born, you've let yourself go, and I can't see you as a woman anymore. Having another child might be impossible.
Sullivan said this rudely while still playing with his phone.
Also, I'll be sleeping with Sullivan, so you can sleep on the sofa or lay an airbed on the floor. Oh, your work? There's a playroom, so you can sleep there.
Got it. I'll sleep in the study with Sage. There was no point in arguing since it wouldn't improve the situation. Besides, we'd been sleeping in separate rooms for a while now, so it wasn't a big deal. The next day, my mother-in-law's tyranny began. She criticized the meals I made and insisted on cooking herself. Sullivan refused to touch my cooking and only ate what his mother made. She also nitpicked about the cleaning, pointing out every little spot of dirt or dust, treating me almost like a servant. She even complained about Sage, saying things like, all she does is cry, she's not growing properly, and she's not cute because she takes after you. She found fault with everything I did. Since my mother-in-law arrived, I couldn't work during the day, so I had to cut into my sleeping time to get any work done. Within just a few days, I was completely exhausted. One day, I took Sage out for a drive to do some shopping. It was a bit far for a weekday afternoon, but I wanted a change of scenery, so I headed to the shopping mall. After finishing our shopping and taking a break at a cafe, I was surprised to see Sullivan there. He was supposed to be at work today. I wondered why he was here at this time. And then I saw a woman coming out of the restroom hugging Sullivan's arm. I was stunned, but I quickly realized what was happening and snapped a few photos with my phone. The sudden shock left me in a daze. I couldn't move for a while, but Sage's cries snapped me back to reality, and I quietly left the scene so Sullivan wouldn't notice me. Why was Sullivan here at this time? Maybe I was mistaken about what I saw? Curious, I contacted Sullivan's company and found out that he had taken a day off today. Of course, I hadn't heard anything about that. Anxiety swept over me. When I got home, I secluded myself in my room and pondered over everything. The bullying from my mother-in-law, my husband's infidelity. What should I do in this situation? Should I endure it? Do I have to endure it? Looking at Sage sleeping peacefully beside me, I felt a strong urge to protect her. Just enduring wouldn't make this child happy. I realized I needed to become stronger as a woman and as a mother, so I decided to take action. First, I hired someone online to confirm Sullivan's infidelity. It was to investigate Sullivan's actions. I also planned to check Sullivan's phone. And any dishes I make that he won't eat, I'll make just for myself. Cleaning and laundry will be done only for myself and Sage. While Sullivan's middle-aged dad bod plan may hit a snag, my mother-in-law's cooking isn't exactly health-conscious, and it's still yielding results. I told myself to endure a little longer. The next morning I declared to my mother-in-law and Sullivan, "From today onwards, I'll only focus on myself and Sage. So please don't involve yourselves with us. That's my intention."
What are you talking about? We're family, aren't we?
My mother-in-law started to argue back.
Yeah, have a drink and suddenly you're saying stuff like that.
Sullivan complained. You two treat me as nothing more than a maid and a baby-making machine, don't you? I just couldn't bear that kind of life anymore. Saying this, I took my own breakfast and Sage's essentials like clothes and diapers and locked myself in my room. As for Sullivan,
anyone who talks like that, I'll divorce them. Is that clear?
He retorted. Idiot. I mentally scoffed at him, knowing he's the one cheating and likely to get divorced. As for my mother-in-law,
what's wrong with this daughter-in-law of mine saying such things? Well, I won't help her anymore,
she declared. I don't need her help, I thought, feeling somewhat relieved. And from that day on, we began living separately under the same roof. Of course, my mother-in-law and Sullivan complained, but I ignored them. I kept important conversations to a minimum. I worked at my own pace, took care of Sage, and progressed with my diet plan. Then I realized something. I was living comfortably without orders from my husband or harassment from my mother-in-law. Why didn't I notice this before? I didn't need to endure. Then I received a report from the private investigator. As I suspected, it was true. The other person was a junior colleague at his company, only 24 years old. They were meeting in a motel 12 times a week. There were even photos. I wanted to bring up the topic of divorce right away, but Sage was still a baby, so I decided to prepare thoroughly before confronting Sullivan. I chose to proceed with preparations calmly. And 2 years passed. My diet went as planned, and I regained my old figure, without pushing myself too hard, so I didn't suffer any health issues. I made sure to wear loose clothing around the house, so Sullivan still believes I have the same chubby figure as before. Meanwhile, Sullivan continued his affair as usual. I've gathered enough evidence by now, so it's time to take action. I consulted a lawyer to discuss alimony, child support, and property division. Then I decided on a date for the divorce and invited my father-in-law to my house for a meal. As usual, Sullivan was out shopping with his mother. I asked my father-in-law for a small favor, so he'll be coming late. And today, I finally decided to show off the results of my diet. I took a shower and styled my hair early. I applied makeup perfectly for the first time in a while. Though no one would see it, I even put on some determined underwear. Then, I wore a slim suit from my single days. Yeah, I'm okay. I don't look like a typical mother with kids at all. Just then, Sullivan and my mother-in-law returned. Welcome back. You're early today, aren't you? I greeted Sullivan with a smile.
Is that you, Kimberly?
Sullivan looked surprised, his mouth hanging open in shock.
Kimberly? When did you start dieting?
Even my mother-in-law couldn't hide her surprise.
Why didn't you tell me you were back to your old self? You're a fine woman.
What are you saying, despite cheating? Sullivan exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement. But now I feel uncomfortable with it.
Kimberly, you're really beautiful. Your figure is great, and I'm a lucky guy to have such a wonderful wife.
How about that? Are you impressed? Feeling good about himself, Sullivan said this as he passed by.
When it gets dark, I'll go to the bedroom, okay?
What are you thinking? My whole body was covered in goosebumps. I truly felt the lack of affection from Sullivan. After dinner, I bathed Sage and put her to sleep. When we gathered in the living room to have tea, I finally brought up the topic. Sullivan, I've thought about a lot of things and I'm considering divorce.
What?
Sullivan looked surprised and flustered.
Why are you suddenly bringing up divorce like this out of the blue?
It's not sudden. When I heard you say I don't see you as a woman, I made up my mind to divorce.
That was obviously a joke, wasn't it? You can't be serious about that.
Kimberly, are you serious? You'll be the one in trouble if you divorce.
My mother-in-law interjected.
What about Sage, Kimberly? Can you raise her alone?
With all due respect, Sullivan and Mom, have either of you ever taken care of Sage? I've been taking care of her all by myself since she was born.
But that's the wife's job, isn't it? Taking care of the household and raising the children?
Nowadays, it's common for both spouses to raise their children together. It's abnormal for wives to be expected to be just wives in this day and age.
Well, what nonsense coming from a wife like you.
Anyway, I no longer want to continue being married to Sullivan. Above all, Sullivan is cheating.
What?
My mother-in-law was speechless.
That's a lie. There must be some mistake. That's right, it must be some misunderstanding. You're just misunderstanding something.
Sullivan denied the affair with a forced smile. It's not a misunderstanding. I've known about your affair for 2 years.
You didn't know about that 2 years ago?
No, that's why I have evidence from 2 years ago.
If that's the case, then it's ancient history. Something from that long ago should have been forgotten by now.
So you actually did have an affair, right? You're admitting to having an affair, aren't you?
No, that's not it. I haven't had an affair, so it's just your misunderstanding.
It's about time you admitted it, isn't it? It's embarrassing.
Hey, Kimberly, isn't it okay for a man to have an affair at least once?
My mother-in-law comes up with outrageous theories.
Can you manage to live even if you divorce? You wouldn't be able to survive without Sullivan's salary, would you?
Don't worry, I have a job and Sage and I can live just fine together.
Kimberly, are you being realistic? You know if you divorce, you'll have to leave here, right? Do you understand?
Yes, I understand everything. In fact, it's because I understand that I've decided to divorce.
Since you're the one bringing up divorce, I'll demand compensation. Can you afford that?
Let's discuss those matters with lawyers involved at a later date.
What are you being so cheeky for?
Anyway, have you ever taken a good look at yourself in the mirror?
What's with the sudden question?
You're already over 30, right? In my opinion, you're just a middle-aged, chubby, balding old man.
What did you say?
And I can't see you as a man anymore. This is what I wanted to say. And then I placed the divorce papers handed over from my father-in-law in front of Sullivan.
It's already late. Let's call it a night for today.
Saying so, my father-in-law stood up. My mother-in-law seemed to be staying overnight. I saw my father-in-law off to the door. Sullivan silently went into the bedroom. And then we held a discussion at the lawyer's office. I wore the suit I used to wear when I worked at the company. The way Sullivan looked at me as if he were licking his lips was unpleasant. The lawyer started the conversation first. When I first hired the private investigator, I received advice to carry around an IC recorder and record Sullivan's and my mother-in-law's abusive remarks. The reality of domestic violence and numerous derogatory remarks towards women from Sullivan became apparent from the recording. Then I presented evidence of infidelity, including photos and activity records from the private investigator. I also printed out the chat history from the phone I investigated. Sullivan seemed to resign himself. With such clear evidence, there was no way for him to escape. In the end, most of our demands were met, and I received compensation from Sullivan as well as from the other woman. Sullivan signed the divorce papers. As he was leaving, Sullivan had a pleading look in his eyes.
Kimberly, can't we start over again? I'm deeply sorry.
It's a pity, but it's too late now. You're not seen as a man anymore. Since you have a girlfriend as your affair partner, you should be with her instead. Sullivan slumped his shoulders dejectedly. With this, my revenge is complete. After the divorce, Sullivan's divorce due to cheating became known to the company, and he was forced to leave the company. He's now living financially on the money he earns from his part-time job. He apparently proposed to his affair partner to be together, but she, following my plan, told him that he's no longer seen as a man due to his middle-aged, balding, and slightly chubby appearance, and ran away. Maybe she never really loved Sullivan from the start, but was just caught up in the affair. I moved to a rental apartment with Sage to get a work-friendly environment. Sage will start kindergarten next year. I wanted to enjoy this life for a while longer while looking forward to Sage's growth.